Daddy, take a bow.
It's been a whole 10 years since the tragic death of Shirley Temple. The world just couldn't stop talking about. Others swore there was more to the story than we were ever told. And through it all, silence from her family, especially her children, until now. Because just recently, after 10 long, painful years, her children, yes, her children, have finally broken their silence. By the end of this video, not only will you understand what truly happened all those years ago, but you'll see why they waited this long to speak, and why they chose to speak now. What happened 10 years ago? Shirley Temple, the little curly-haired dynamo who danced, sang, and tapped her way into the hearts of millions, passed away on February 10, 2014. Can you believe it? I mean, even if you didn't grow up watching her, you still know Shirley Temple, right? That smile? Those dimples? The way she could light up a whole movie screen back in the day, Versailles with just a wink and a little giggle? Yes, that's the one. Anyway, she died peacefully at her home in Woodside, California. Peacefully. There's something comforting about that, isn't there? It wasn't anything tragic or dramatic, just a quiet exit from a very loud, very full life. She was 85. Imagine that, 85 years of living, with so many of those years spent in the public eye, and yet somehow still managing to keep so much of herself private in the end. Did Shirley Temple really take a heartbreaking secret to her grave? Or did her children just decide the world wasn't ready for the truth? Well, now they've finally spoken out. And let's just say, the rumors weren't all lies. Why did they wait a full decade? What exactly are they revealing? And how does it change the way we remember America's favorite child star? Sit tight. This gets emotional, shocking, and just a little bit heartbreaking by the end. Now, according to her longtime agent and also her family's spokesperson, Charles Black Jr., who also happens to be her son, talk about keeping it in the family, Shirley had been dealing with some breathing issues for a few weeks. Nothing sudden, no emergency scenes, no rushed hospital visits like you sometimes hear about. Her doctor said it was respiratory failure that finally took her, but she was resting, asleep, peaceful. Isn't that the kind of ending everyone secretly hopes for? To be surrounded by the people you love, in the comfort of your own home, just quietly slipping away without pain? And you know what's so heartwarming? Even as her body was slowly giving out, her mind was still sharp, like razor sharp. Her son said she was still talking about books, news, the world, right up until the very end. That says a lot about the kind of woman she was, don't you think? She wasn't just some child star who disappeared after the spotlight faded. No, she stayed vibrant in her own way, in her own space. She didn't need the flash bulbs and the red carpets to feel alive. When the news broke, her family put out this beautiful, dignified statement. They called her America's sweetheart, and honestly, how could they not? She was that sweetheart, wasn't she? But they didn't stop there. They honored her entire life, not just the cutesy film roles that made her famous. They spoke about her incredible work as a diplomat. Yes, Shirley Temple was a legit ambassador. And most touchingly, as their mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. It's funny, isn't it? How someone the whole world knew for decades could still be known even more deeply by just a handful of people. And the response? It was immediate and massive. Hollywood paused. Fans mourned. Politicians weighed in. Even the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences had something to say, calling her a true icon and legend. And then there was George H.W. Bush. Yep, that George Bush, who said she was not only talented, but also a fine diplomat. It's great to see that Shirley Temple wasn't just famous, she was respected across so many fields. Who else has gone from singing "Animal Crackers in My Soup" to shaking hands in foreign embassies? And yet, even in death, she stayed true to who she was in those later years. Humble, private, not about the show. Her funeral? It wasn't some extravagant Hollywood production. It was a simple private affair at Alta Mesa Memorial Park. No paparazzi, no dramatic goodbyes, just close family and peace. That's how she wanted it. No spotlight, no curtain call, just rest. But her fans? Oh, they weren't about to let her go without a little sparkle. They showed up at her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame with lollipops. Thousands of them. A sweet little nod to her iconic "On the Good Ship" lollipop number. Isn't that just the cutest thing? It's like the fans were saying, "We remember you the way you made us feel when we were kids." And I think she would have smiled at that. When the death certificate was finally filed in San Mateo County, it confirmed everything the family had already shared. Natural causes. No drama, no mystery. Just the quiet end of a long, impactful life. And maybe that's the most beautiful part of it all. How someone who lit up screens with so much joy and innocence managed to slip away in a way that felt just as gentle and graceful as she had always seemed. Why her children chose now to speak out. It's already been 10 years since Shirley Temple passed away. 10 whole years! It honestly feels like just yesterday people were watching her old black and white films and smiling at those precious curls and dimples. But now, a full decade later, her family, especially her kids, are finally opening up about what life was really like behind all the fame and sparkle. And trust me, it's not what most people think. It's kind of like when everyone assumes your life is one way just because of how it looks on the outside. But really, the truth is something completely different. That's the energy here. So, let's talk about Susan, Shirley's daughter. She's been getting more vocal lately, and honestly, it makes sense. When you hit a big anniversary like 10 years, it stirs something inside you, right? Like memories come flooding back, and suddenly you feel this deep need to set the record straight. Not just for the world, but for your own peace of mind. Susan isn't just speaking out because it's some media stunt or anything dramatic like that. No, this is real. She's reminiscing, she's grieving, and she's celebrating all in one breath. And what's so touching is how she talks about her mom, not as Shirley Temple the star, but as Mom, the woman who was always right there beside her. Not just for the big moments, but for the quiet ones, too. She said they were practically glued at the hip when it came to things like shopping trips and traveling together. I mean, can you imagine Shirley Temple, the woman everyone saw on screen, just casually pushing a shopping cart with her daughter like any regular mom? But that's exactly the point Susan is making. She's not trying to glamorize anything. She's just saying, "Hey, my mom was my best friend, and I miss her. And there's so much more to her than what people think they know." And then there's Charles Jr., her son, who's chimed in too, which makes this whole thing even more heartfelt. You can feel how much love and pride they both carry for her. He said something that really hits you right in the chest. He mentioned that the only time he was really reminded his mom was a big deal was when someone else came up asking for an autograph. Isn't that something? Imagine growing up with a world-famous mother, but in your home, she's just the person who made you pancakes and reminded you to do your homework. That's interesting, right? But also, kind of beautiful? Both Susan and Charles Jr. seem laser-focused on correcting the myths and nonsense people have believed for years. You know how the public just loves to put celebrities in boxes? Either they're divas, or they're disconnected, or they're too obsessed with their careers to care about anything else. But Shirley Temple? Nah. According to her kids, she was the exact opposite of all that. Her proudest role wasn't being a superstar or even a U.S. ambassador, which is already such a boss move, but being a mom who cooked dinners, who laughed with her kids, who chose family over red carpets every single time. And that's the part they really want the world to understand. She was down to earth. She was kind. She was normal, in the best possible way. And isn't that kind of refreshing to hear? In a time where so many celebrities seem larger than life and completely untouchable. It's honestly heartwarming to know that Shirley Temple, of all people, stayed grounded. Like, this was someone who could have lived her whole life as this untouchable icon. But she didn't. She chose real life. She chose dinners at the table, little moments that added up to a full, meaningful life. Charles Jr. even said something that stuck with me, that she was wonderful and normal. I mean, what more could you ask for from someone who grew up in the spotlight? And you can tell that the timing of all this, the 10-year mark, wasn't just random. It's almost like they've been carrying these thoughts for a while, and now, finally, it felt right to speak up. Not just to defend her memory, but to honor it in the most genuine way possible. It's less about rewriting history and more about telling it the way it really was. This whole thing isn't just a tribute. It's a heartfelt, deeply personal unveiling of the woman behind the legend. And let's be honest, how many times do we get to hear a celebrity's legacy told like this? Not by tabloids, not by fans, but by the people who sat next to them at the breakfast table and went on vacation with them and cried in their arms. That's real. That's rare. And now, 10 years later, Shirley Temple's kids are peeling back the curtain and saying, this is who she truly was. And honestly, it just makes you love her even more. Would you have ever guessed that the biggest child star in the world just wanted to be mom at the end of the day? You thought you knew Shirley Temple. The dimples, the curls, the endless charm. But what if behind that sweet smile was a truth her family kept hidden for 10 whole years? Why are her children choosing now to finally speak up? Were the rumors we all brushed off actually true? And what were they so afraid of people finding out? Keep watching till the very end, because what they just confirmed will change everything. Which rumors did the family finally confirm? Shirley Temple was basically America's sweetheart, the face of innocence during some pretty rough times, like the Great Depression. But here's the thing, there's always been this lingering cloud of mystery around certain parts of her life, right? You hear one thing, then another, and it's like, wait, what's the truth here? Well, guess what? Her family finally decided to clear the air and set the record straight. And oh my goodness, some of the stuff they revealed, it's like really wild. Not in a scandalous way, but in a wow, I had no idea kind of way that makes you sit back and rethink everything you thought you knew about the girl who sang on the Good Ship Lollipop. So let's start with that iconic Shirley Temple smile. You know the one. Picture her in black and white, twirling around in those frilly little dresses, flashing that megawatt grin like she didn't have a single care in the world. Well, turns out, that dazzling smile? It was a bit of Hollywood magic. Can you believe it? The family recently confirmed that Shirley actually wore special dental caps and plates during her early career at Fox Studios to cover up missing baby teeth. Yes, like any normal kid, she lost teeth, but because she was in the spotlight 24/7 and needed to look flawless, the studios made sure her smile never skipped a beat. It's like, how did we never notice that before? And get this, during her big cement ceremony at Grauman's Theater in 1988, you know, that whole hands and feet in the cement thing that stars still do to this day, She pulled off this low-key genius move. Instead of flashing a big grin for the photographers, which would have exposed the fact that some of her teeth were missing, she just casually took off her shoes and pressed her bare feet into the cement. Who even thinks to do that? It was like her little way of saying, hey, let's focus on the feet, not the teeth, okay? Honestly, that's some next-level child star cleverness. And it explains so much about how her smile always looked so picture-perfect, even at an age when most kids are walking around with jack-o'-lantern grins. But wait, it gets heavier. Let's talk about something that's been misunderstood for years: her health. Most people know that Shirley Temple had breast cancer. That part was public. And honestly, she was a total trailblazer in how openly she talked about it back then. Like, remember how taboo it used to be to even mention breast cancer in the media? And here was Shirley, going on TV and talking about mastectomies like it was a normal conversation. That was huge. But what most people didn't know, and this is the part that really hit me, is that breast cancer wasn't actually what caused her death. Her death certificate, which only recently became part of the public record, revealed that she died from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. If you're not familiar, that's a serious lung disease and is actually one of the top causes of death in the US right now. I know, right? It's not talked about nearly enough, but it's a big deal. And here's where it gets even more surprising. Shirley Temple was a smoker, like a lifelong smoker. Isn't that so unexpected? This woman who practically represented clean living and wholesome values was quietly puffing away behind the scenes since she was a teenager. But here's the thing, she never wanted that part of her life to be public. Not because she was vain or trying to maintain an image of perfection, but because she truly didn't want to set a bad example. That's what her family said. She felt so much responsibility to her fans, especially the younger ones, that she went out of her way to make sure she was never photographed with a cigarette in her hand. That's kind of heartbreaking, right? Imagine carrying that kind of guilt your whole life, trying to live up to an image the world created for you when you were still losing baby teeth. There's this old interview from 1979 in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that the family referenced, where it was hinted that she was dealing with a lot more than people realized. And now, looking back, all the pieces start to fit together. Like, we always saw her as this unshakable symbol of childhood joy, but behind that, there was a woman with real struggles, real secrets, and a whole lot of pressure on her shoulders. Isn't it kind of wild how someone can be so famous, so universally adored, and still manage to keep such personal truths hidden for decades? Honestly, it makes you wonder how many other things celebrities quietly carry with them because they feel like the world wouldn't understand. With Shirley, the way her family is finally sharing these truths feels almost like a gift. It doesn't make her any less lovable. It makes her more human, more relatable. Because at the end of the day, she was just a girl who grew up way too fast, spent her youth making millions smile, and quietly battled her own demons in the background. And don't you think it's kind of beautiful that even in death, she's still teaching us something? Whether it's about the pressure to look perfect, the stigma around smoking and health, or the quiet strength it takes to protect others from your own flaws. Shirley Temple's story has layers, so many layers. And now that we know a little more about the real her, not just the tap-dancing, smiling version on the screen, it feels like we can appreciate her in a whole new way. She was present during the Prague Spring invasion. Back in 1968, Shirley Temple, by then already a seasoned diplomat and not just a Hollywood darling, was in Czechoslovakia as a representative of the International Federation of Multiple Sclerosis Societies. She was out there doing serious humanitarian and advocacy work. And get this, she was actually scheduled to meet with Alexander Dubček, the then Czechoslovakian party leader, on the exact same day that the Soviet Union decided to roll in with their tanks and full-blown invasion force. Like, what are the odds? Now, Shirley Temple, who once danced across sound stages in sparkling tap shoes, was suddenly stuck in the middle of one of the most terrifying political upheavals of the Cold War. It's not the kind of plot twist you expect, right? And this wasn't just some minor inconvenience. She was trapped in her hotel, unsure of what would happen next. The atmosphere was tense. You can almost feel the panic and uncertainty in the air. And then, in one of the most haunting moments of her life, she ran to the hotel rooftop, probably just trying to get a sense of what was going on, maybe even to find safety. And from up there, she saw something that would stay with her forever. A woman, completely unarmed, gunned down by Soviet troops right before her eyes. Can you even imagine the shock of witnessing something like that firsthand? This wasn't a scene from a movie set. This was real life. And for Shirley, it became a memory that haunted her deeply for the rest of her life. I mean, how could it not? And here's the part that adds another layer to her already impressive story. After all that, after surviving that traumatic experience and continuing to serve her country and other humanitarian causes with poise and strength, there was even talk of her possibly joining President Ronald Reagan's cabinet after he won the election in 1980. Can you believe that the girl who started out dancing with stuffed animals on film was once in the running for a cabinet-level position in the US government? That's just the kind of transformation most people can't even dream of. And honestly, she would have totally rocked that position too. But instead of stepping into that particular spotlight, she chose to keep building her legacy through diplomacy. She leaned into the ambassadorial work she was already doing, proving once again that she was much more than just a child star. She was a woman of substance, intelligence, and incredible grace. And what makes her story even more moving is that 10 years after her passing, Shirley Temple's life continues to be this incredible well of inspiration for so many people. Like, think about it. How many child stars managed to successfully reinvent themselves? Not once, but twice. First into a global diplomat, and then into a respected public figure who was taken seriously in the world of politics and international relations. That's rare. That's not just rare, it's almost unheard of. And even now, long after she's gone, people still look to her life story as proof that you can change, you can grow, you can survive unthinkable moments, and still go on to do something meaningful with your life. Her legacy isn't just tucked away in black and white films or old Hollywood memorabilia. It lives on in the way people approach service, leadership, and even personal reinvention. It lives in how we talk about courage, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that shows up when no one's watching. And honestly, isn't that the kind of inspiration we need more of? Not just fame and glamour, but the kind of quiet bravery that faces down real danger and still chooses hope and action. Shirley Temple was so much more than a tap-dancing sweetheart. She was a woman who stared down tanks, trauma, and the unrelenting pressures of fame, and still came out on the other side, fighting for good. And doesn't that just make you admire her all over again? We all adored Shirley Temple on the screen, but what if the real story was hidden off camera for 10 long years? Her children have finally broken their silence. And the truth? It's not what anyone expected. What were they protecting? What did Shirley never want the world to know? And why does it matter so much today? The answers don't come easy, but they come, if you stick around until the end. How Shirley Temple's story continues to inspire. It's kind of interesting when you think about the fact that it's been 10 whole years since Shirley Temple left this world, and yet, somehow, it still feels like she's right here with us. Not just in those black and white classics we grew up watching with our grandparents, or the curly-haired doll we may or may not have begged for one Christmas, but in the way she lived. Honestly, Shirley wasn't just a child star, she was a force. And no, that's not just some fluffy tribute talk. This woman genuinely shifted the world in more ways than one. And one of the most unforgettable, powerful things she ever did, it wasn't even during her acting days. It happened when she did something that, at the time, most people, especially celebrities, wouldn't dream of doing. She talked about breast cancer. Can you believe that? Let's rewind a bit to 1972, an era when the mere mention of the word cancer made people go quiet. Back then, you didn't talk about these things openly. It was whispered about in back rooms or not mentioned at all. And here comes Shirley, this childhood icon, someone everyone knew and adored, standing in front of the whole world and saying, "Yes, I had breast cancer. I had a mastectomy. And here I am, still standing." Like, can we just pause for a second and let that sink in? I mean, who does that? Who has the guts to take something that personal, that raw, and lay it out bare like that, especially when the world wasn't even ready to hear it? Shirley Temple did, and not for fame, not for sympathy, but because she knew that if she could talk about it, maybe, just maybe, another woman out there wouldn't feel so scared. Maybe she'd go for that screening. Maybe she'd ask her doctor that awkward question. Maybe she'd catch something early and save her own life. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Thousands, literally thousands of women were inspired to take control of their health because Shirley Temple opened her mouth and told her truth. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't glamorize it. She didn't hide behind publicists or fancy medical jargon. She just said it like it was. And let's be real, that kind of honesty, that kind of bravery, that's not just admirable, that's world-changing. Now, think about this. How many celebrities today openly speak about their health challenges? Tons, right? But back in Shirley's day, it was almost unheard of. She set that ball rolling. She made it okay. She gave people permission to talk. Isn't that incredible? Like, imagine the ripple effect. Her voice echoed into future decades, nudging other public figures, movie stars, singers, even royalty, to open up about everything from cancer to mental health. All because Shirley Temple chose to speak when silence was the norm. And what's even more beautiful, she didn't make it about her. She wasn't trying to craft a comeback story or gain media attention. In fact, she said something along the lines of, "The only reason I'm talking about this is because I want to help someone else." That's it. No drama, no frills, just heart, just empathy, just pure, raw humanity. So, while everyone remembers the tap dancing, the dimples, and the good ship lollipop, let's not forget this part of Shirley's legacy, because honestly, it might be the most important thing she ever did. She turned pain into purpose. She turned fear into strength. And she did it with the same grace and sincerity that made the world fall in love with her in the first place. 10 years gone, and Shirley Temple is still teaching us how to be brave. Still showing us that even the hardest moments in life can be used to shine a light for someone else. And isn't that something we all need to be reminded of sometimes? That our stories, no matter how painful, can save someone else's life? Shirley knew that, and she shared hers, not for applause, but because she cared. Her transition from child star to respected diplomat. You know how some child stars just kind of disappear once they grow up? Like, they have this moment in the spotlight when they're little, and then poof, they're gone. Maybe doing reality shows or just trying to stay relevant? Well, Shirley Temple was not one of those. No, she didn't just fade into the background after her adorable curls and dimples stopped being Hollywood's biggest sensation. Instead, she did something that still has people shaking their heads in awe. She pulled off one of the most graceful and downright impressive reinventions you could ever imagine. Like seriously, who goes from being a child superstar to a full-blown diplomat? Shirley did. And not just any diplomat. We're talking about real deal, boots on the ground, making a difference kind of diplomacy. After charming the socks off America as a little girl on the big screen, Shirley Temple Black, she added Black after marrying Charles Alden Black, didn't just retire to a life of leisure. Oh no, she got to work. And I mean serious work. In 1974, she was appointed as the U.S. ambassador to Ghana. Ghana. Like, imagine going from movie sets and costumes to international negotiations and foreign policy in West Africa. That's not just a career pivot, that's a whole lifestyle transformation. And she didn't just sit pretty in the role either. She dove right into the complexities of the job, navigating tricky diplomatic waters with the kind of grace and intelligence people honestly didn't expect from a former child actor. But you know Shirley, always full of surprises. Then, just when you think she might slow down, boom! She becomes the first female chief of protocol of the United States. But wait, it gets even more inspiring. Fast forward to the late 80s, and guess what? Shirley was back at it, this time as the U.S. ambassador to Czechoslovakia. This was during one of the most intense political moments in Eastern Europe's modern history, the Velvet Revolution, when Czechoslovakia was transitioning out of communism. So there she was, right in the thick of it, helping to shape U.S. relations during a critical, historic shift. She showed that women could lead, could command respect, and could shape history, without ever losing their sense of self. She was proof that fame doesn't have to be the peak. It can be the beginning of something deeper, more lasting, more real. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.